Well, I got a pair of new tires for the bike. This is a Harley-Davidson 1989 Sportster XL. These are stock size tires, except actually this should be 90-19, 90-90-19, not 100-90-19. I've never had any problem putting on this size. It's a lot harder to find 90-90-19. The equivalent size for this is 325-19, or there's a letter number. There's also letters. And its stock size should be 275-19, but they're hard to find. Now, both these tires were 134 something delivered, and I got it from Tires Cheap on eBay. That's the vendor's name. Tires Cheap on vendor's name is Tires Cheap, all one word, on eBay. Now, normally I usually use Conti's or Dunlop Elite, or Conti Blitz, or Conti Continental, or Conti Touring, but just the rear tires usually like more money than both of these. And actually, I've read that these things they're good. People had a lot of good feedback on them. The Japanese tires, they're not really. Oh, wait a minute, they're made in Taiwan, I guess, but I think they're a Japanese company. They're not screwed up. So I'm going to put these on a bike and use them. And just want to point out down here, I'm going to be, when you change the tires, you should re-grease the wheel bearings and pop out and put new seals in there. So I'm going to do that too. Yeah, I want to point out too, if you see this yellow dot, this is on the front tire. You got a yellow dot on the rear tire. What this represents is the balancing mark from the factory. This is the low spot, the low weight on the tire. So this normally works a lot better with rims that you require tubes, because you would do is you would put this dot by the valve stem. The valve stem has a little bit more weight. With a mag type wheel, it's kind of iffy. But that's how I put them on there. Also, you make sure you put them on. You notice the tire was marked the direction. I mean, people got bikes notice, but this is an instructional video. You make sure you put them on the right direction. Now, I never did this before, but I'm going to mention something, and you might want to double check this. Like, this is a front tire, this is for the front, so you put this on the front, rear tire goes on the rear. You always try to use a match set. Now, I've used where I've had a Conti in the back and a Dunlop in the front. I've done that shit before. I mean, you really should put a match set on there, but a lot of times, well, if you're riding a bike hard, you wear out the rear one faster, so you wind up changing that one more. But if you're putting a rear tire on the front, I would like to double check this, but you usually put this backwards. If it's designed for the rear, you'd actually change the direction. So I just want people, but check with your motorcycle shop on it. Normally you just put them on, front goes on the front, and you put the drive in the right place. I know people with bikes know this crap. Now, I want to point out, you can also use, I don't do this, I don't really use this stuff much, but if you got a problem where you're afraid a rim might leak on a tubeless tire, you might, if there's a little spot on the rim that's got some corrosion on it and you really can't clean it off that great, you want to keep the rim, you might want to use a little bead sealer. Now, something I also put in here sometimes is this junk. It's tire sealant. It actually prevents flat tires, and it's like a balancer. It's like it will balance the tire by itself somewhat. These are things I really had no problem doing on a motorcycle. And to tell you the truth, I'm more old school. I mean, this bike came with tubeless rims, but I'm almost a little, and I've actually fixed these with kits, and plugged the rear tire, and I drove, I put a plug in it, drove it around for like thousands of miles, which is freaking insane, but I did. And I personally kind of like the old school, where you have the wheels that have the grease fittings on them, and you have tubes in the tires. I don't know, I'm kind of old school, really. So every modern improvement is a bunch of bullshit, in my opinion. But I'm going to go with, I can't find my tire lever, so I'm going to be pulling these rims off, these tires off, and doing them with crowbars and big ass screwdrivers. But they're not too bad to get off. This isn't like taking off a car. Alright, just to take this off, you got a 19 millimeter or 3/4 inch. Either it's probably metric, but 3/4 and 19 millimeters, the same thing. Torque on this for the 89 is 50 to 55 foot-pounds. Different years actually have different torque specifications. It's around 50 foot-pounds. And I always use like very sparingly. I'll put a little bit of Loctite on it, very little bit. You know, the blue, not the red. And on this side you got the pinch bolt, and you know it's 14 millimeter or 9/16. I'm sure it's a 14 millimeter. I'm using a 9/16, but those are basically the same equivalent sizes. So just going to pull this out. Okay, basically the wheels off the bike. You know, you got the nut, which is 19 millimeter, lock washer. Then that's actually the for the speedometer. Now that's disconnected because I just have the cable just pushed in there. It stays in there, it doesn't come out. And then here you have another spacer on this side, right here. And this comes out, and if you notice, there's on the end of this, like that's where you hit it with the punch. And I'll use a block of wood to start it, but what I usually use is a 3/8 drive extension and just pound it out. It's usually in there pretty tight, and that's why they have this on it, so you can turn it and get it loose. I mean, there's plenty of grease in there. Now the other thing is I want to point out, with these tires, they have a little wider section width, 190/19. When you're taking them out, you got to take the air out of them, and I always put, it's like to get them past these bolts. Actually, since these are coming off the wheel, I put a little grease on the tire because they're a little wider. They're supposed to be 90/90. 19, not 190/19. These are 325/19 is too big, but they fit, or 275/19 is the stock size. So I'm gonna take this wheel too. I'm gonna blast it, and I got a feeling this tire is like really on there, petrified. It's gonna be a lot of fun taking this thing off. I'm hitting it with hot water pressure washer. And I decided not to do the wheel bearings because they've been done. They've really got 0 miles on them. So I'm just going to change the tires out. You can see on the old tire, there's the balance mark. Well, basically I had this contraption for breaking the bead on car tires. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for motorcycle tires, normally you just have to stand on them. These things have been on here a while, so I'm going to have to take my time with this. And you know, all I did was I used some pressure treated wood. These are 2x4s, and you can see they're cut in like a U shape. Then I got a 4x4 on this side. So you know, it's held up at the right angle, so it presses in more next to the bead. Now I'm not going to change out the seals on here again, because basically I was using this block going around. I was using the bike for like maybe going around a block every year. And I did these a couple years ago, and there's no way in hell these are messed up, because basically this is all protected from the weather. And I put like a ton of grease in there, so that's just a waste of time to do that. But normally you wouldn't use a screwdriver. You could use a screwdriver to pry these out, but what I like to use is a really small claw hammer, and the 2 claws get in here, and then we use the hammer just like that, like it's pulling a nail. It's a small claw hammer. It pulls these seals out without even damaging them. But I'm not going to go do this over again, because I load this up with grease, and actually when I put the seal in, like I grease the bearing up a real lot, I'll put grease all behind the seal. Then when I press it in, the grease pops out everywhere. That's why there's still grease all right around here. Actually, when I do stuff, it's probably stays together a lot longer. So this is going to take me a while, so probably in the next clip you'll see with this thing off the rim, basically, or halfway off the rim. Well, basically the tire's halfway off the rim now, and I just want to point out how to use these tire levers. This side here with the hook, You see there's a hook on there? That's for when you get behind the tire like this and you pry it over. Now, this is a little bit big and thick to fit in there. That's why I use the screwdriver. A lot of times I'll start it just a little bit, give me enough room to put this hook around the back of this when it's in the tire. And you have to have, like on this side here, you have to have it off the bead, and it gives you a little more room to pull the tire up because it's in the center of the rim here inside. In other words, when it's off the bead, it goes in this way a little bit, which gives you enough room to pull it off of the top. Now these tires are pretty old, so good shape, but you know, I wasn't really using the bike. I was just taking it around a block and stuff, and I'm not, now I plan to use it and I want some new tires on it. I'm not screwing around with these things. But like I stated, the wheel bearings are pretty solid, so you know, no way in hell that stuff's messed up. But I just do want to point out, I did take off these tires a lot of times on bikes, on the bike a lot, and I did it on some other bikes. I found, now I'm just going from memory, I found using 2 tire levers and 2 screwdrivers was the best, because sometimes the tire levers are a little bit too thick to get behind it, and the screwdrivers are perfect just to start it, or just to hold the section that you broke the bead on, and then you go to the next section, and then you have the other screwdriver to start it, and you can get behind it with this, the hook side, and it comes off. It's not a big deal. These normally come off pretty easy. You just jump up and down on them a few times, you break the bead, and you don't have to go through all the lengths I'm going through with this wood and all this type of stuff normally. This one's been on here and the rubber's kind of hard on it too. So basically the tire's off the bike. Well, it is off the bike now. I mean off the rim now. Now I remember you showed you this one side has the hook, right? That's for prying off the one side of the bead. Now when you have the one side of the bead popped off, you're going to get behind this, you know, the one bead will be on here. You want to get over to the other side of the rim like this and then pull it off. That's what you use the flat side for. And you need 2 tire levers. It works best. But I found 2 screwdrivers, big screwdrivers, and 2 tire levers works the best, because the tire levers are too thick to get in there sometimes. So, and you know, these are hard tires, so this was exceptionally difficult. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my time and you know, go around the rim with this. Make sure it's perfectly clean, and it does not wear down the aluminum, so it's not going to be wavy or nothing. So I'll make sure this is cleaned up really good. So it's probably just onto a second part. The second part, I'll just say, you know, make sure how the wheel bearings got the right run out, you know, calipers on there right, and that type of stuff. And probably produce another video on the rear tire, because you got to watch the chain alignment, you know. And you should inspect the sprocket in a chain, just inspect the sprocket for run out and that type of stuff. But bikes aren't as crazy complicated as you think. There's just some tricks, but you got to maintain a bike, because it's like, you know, some kind of breakdown in the bike could be a safety hazard big time, and tires are extremely important. Okay, I went around the tire all around here because there's like some junk, a little bit of corrosion, and got it cleaned up. It doesn't look like, you know, perfectly clean to the eye, but it's smooth. And I went over it with this, the drill. And you know, I was careful not to stay in one spot, but I mean, it's not going to really wear out the aluminum. That's designed to just take off very light corrosion and stuff. And then I went over it with this. So next thing is to install it on the wheel on it, the tire on the wheel. Alright, now if you're ready to put the tire on the wheel, make sure it's going in the right direction. Okay, front tire goes on the front tire, you know, the front wheel. Make sure rotation's right, and the yellow mark, which is the low weight of the tire, goes with the valve. And basically soap up all around here. Just use regular hand soap, that's all. Alright. And you jump up and down on it and you use the tire levers. Yeah, basically they go on easier than they come off, and you know, you just stand on them basically. That's all you got to do. You can push them on by hand, no big deal. But it'll go on. Usually better to do this with boots, but you can see what's going on. And then you fill it up with air. That's it. And basically now, you know, just fill it up with air. Now I use the actual air, this thing, because it blows it up a lot faster. And you can see the air compressor just went off. And then just install the valve. So that's it. And the opposite, you know, you just put it on the same way you took it off. Make sure you look up the torque specifications. And with this wheel on the 89, the pinch bolt is 30 to 35 foot-pounds, and the axle nut is 50 to 55 foot-pounds. And I always use a little bit of lock nut on it, but that's basically it. And I make sure I have the forks pushed together pretty tight. That's another thing. And make sure you have the bushings in there, the spacers and all that stuff like that, and you're fine. That's really it. I don't need to make a second part of the video. This is it. So it's on there. You see the yellow dot is next to the valve. That's the low weight of the tire. And here's the direction. Direction's going the right way. It goes this way, you know. So that's it.